Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I cook food from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies, such as Indonesia. Today, we'll be making my family's take on Bami Goreng. We just call it Bami. It is an Indonesian noodle dish with vegetables and typically chicken, although my family makes it with ground beef. I don't know how we ended up there, but that's what we do, so that's what I'll be making today. Whenever I visit home, I know that the first evening we'll be eating bami with pilaf. Pilaf is a chicken dish in a spicy and sweet tomato sauce with one unexpected ingredient. I'll be making that for the next video, so if you click the subscribe and the bell button, you will be notified when that video goes live. At the end of this video, I'll give you some other serving suggestions, so stick around. Let's get started. First, you will need 500 grams of noodles. In the Netherlands, you can buy specific noodles for bami, and they're made with both wheat flour and semolina flour. They're hard to find around here, so I either make them myself with 2 parts regular flour, 1 part semolina, and 1 part water, and use a pasta machine. But when I'm lazy, I just use something like this, just linguine from the grocery store made with just semolina flour. It will work just fine. The next thing you will need is something called sambal ulek. And sambal ulek is a chili paste that is Indonesian, Malaysian, that we can find in any grocery store really around here. But if you can't, most likely your Asian grocery store will have them. And if you have a hard time finding it, but you do have a bottle of sriracha in your fridge, and let's face it, who doesn't have a bottle of sriracha in their fridge, you can use that as well. The next thing you will need is something called kecap manis. Now, kecap manis is an Indonesian sweet soy sauce, and it is hard to find. This is a Dutch brand that we actually bought at one of the online Dutch grocery stores, but you can sometimes find it from a brand called ABC at the Asian store. If you cannot find it, I will post a link to a recipe on how to make your own kecap manis below. Next, what we'll need is 750 grams of ground beef. Sometimes I grind it myself. This time we bought it at the grocery store. The next ingredient is 1 medium-sized onion. I'm using white onions, but you can use yellow onions as well. You will also need 2 garlic cloves. And yes, I know there's 3 in this little bowl, and that is because they were a lot smaller than I was anticipating. But when they're kind of this size, I typically only use 2, but the other ones were smaller, so I made it 3. The next ingredient are 2 leeks. And if you're not familiar with leeks, they're in the onion family, and typically you use the white and light green area of this because the darker green is much more bitter than the rest. So we will be cutting these up. These haven't been washed yet because there's a lot of dirt on the inside, and I actually wash it after I've cut it. We do have to add a little bit of heat on top of the sambal. We always use a red chili pepper. Now, typically, you would use an actual cayenne pepper, in which case you just use 1 because it's more spicy, but I couldn't find them this time around, so instead I am using 2 Fresno peppers. Next, you'll need 100 grams of bean sprouts. These get added all the way at the end of the cooking process, and they just get tossed through to make warm so that they don't lose their crunch. The last 2 vegetables are 300 grams of shredded cabbage and 100 grams of shredded carrots. This is either Napa or Chinese cabbage. I typically take the lazy way out and just buy a bag of coleslaw mix. It's already shredded, it's already cleaned, and it saves me a lot of work. I do make sure that there isn't a ton of other stuff in there. So we found one that has just Napa cabbage as well as a few carrots in there. So I subtracted a little bit of the 100 grams for the carrots here. So that's it for the vegetables. One of the conveniences when you make this back in the Netherlands is that at any grocery store you can buy a little baggie of what's called bami kruiden. It's the spices that go into bami goreng. We don't have that available here. You can buy it online at some of the Dutch grocery stores, but you can also just make a mixture yourself, and you do that by mixing about 1 teaspoon of garam masala and 1 teaspoon of curry powder. You'll need a large pot of salted water brought to a boil. While my water is coming to a boil for the noodles, I'm going to prepare some of the vegetables. So let's start with the onion. We're just going to take off the ends. You see that? Bad garbage bowl. Okay, we're peeling the papery skin off the onions. I may be crying while I'm doing this, so if I do, don't feel sorry for me, it's okay. You're going to take a grater and grate your onions. Be careful, this is sharp and you don't want to cut yourself. Ah, and my eyes are starting to water. We're done grating the onion, and boy, did it make me cry. This is one pungent onion. And we're going on to garlic, which I know is not going to make me cry. I use a microplane for this. You can also, if you want to, use a garlic press, but I like using the microplane. Be careful, because this is pretty sharp. Okay. All right, it is time to cut the leeks. And I know I said at the beginning of the video, but it's worth saying again. Leeks can get very dirty on the inside. So what I typically do is I wash it after I've cut it. It's just a little bit easier. I cut off the root. Then I cut off some of the dark green leaves, like that. And then we cut it lengthwise. Find a spot where it lays relatively securely, and then we're going to just slice it in thin half moons. And they're flying everywhere. We are cutting nice thin slices. If you have a bigger knife, you can maybe do more than 2 at a time, but I like the control of just having to curl your fingers away from the knife. You don't want to cut yourself doing this. This is not a speed competition. You don't have to go fast. Just, as my dad would say, met beleid, which means, you know, with intention, with carefulness, rather than speed. I actually think that we're looking pretty good. I'm not going to use the rest of this. What we're going to do now is I'm going to clean it. I'm going to put this in a bowl of water and just kind of toss it around. You will see all the dirt fall to the bottom, and you're going to keep doing that. Lift it up, then carefully pour off the water, add more water, and do that until there is no more sand in the bottom of the bowl. I'll go do that right now and add it to the cabbage and the carrots. It's time to add the noodles to the boiling water. I added some salt to it. This particular brand of noodles needs 7 to 9 minutes, so I'm only going to put it in there probably for like 6, maybe 7 minutes, because they will cook a little further in with the meat and the vegetable. So here we go. Make sure that they're all submerged. But here we are. Stir it from time to time so they don't stick together. And we're going to set a timer for 6 minutes. I have rinsed and drained the leeks, and as I was looking at it, I was getting a little worried that maybe it was too much. So what I did is I actually weighed it, so it is approximately 300 grams, because we have 300 grams of coleslaw or cabbage, 100 grams of carrots, and you want the total of these vegetables to be around the same amount of weight as the meat. So we have 750 grams of meat, and I wanted to make sure we had approximately 700 grams of vegetables. So I'm going to add this in with the cabbage and the carrots. All right, so the pasta has been rinsed with cold water to stop the cooking and drained in a colander. Now it's time to cook the meat, the vegetables, and the noodles all together on the stove. I have a large Dutch oven, and don't underestimate the amount of space you need to stir the noodles through. And we're going to add 1 tablespoon of oil to this. We're going to wait for that to heat up, and then we will add the onion, the shredded onion and grated garlic, as well as 2 teaspoons of sambal oelek. Swirl it around, make sure the bottom of the pot is fully covered. Now that the oil is hot, it is time to move a little bit quick. We're going to add the onion and garlic mixture, as well as 2 teaspoons of sambal. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the 2 teaspoons of sambal right to the onion and garlic mixture, so that you don't have to spend time, because you're only going to cook this on high for about 30 seconds. You don't want to burn the garlic, and then you're going to turn the heat down. So here we go, and it's going to make some noise. in just like maybe 30 seconds. We're now going to turn the heat down to a medium-low and continue cooking this for about 3 minutes. Now that it's on over lower heat, you don't have to keep stirring. I just want to make sure that nothing burns, but just stir it occasionally. And when the 3 minutes is over, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the heat again and add the ground meat as well as the curry and garam masala to this. We have cooked this for 3 minutes. It is time to add the ground beef. So first we're going to increase the heat back to high because we don't want to boil the beef. We want to actually just brown it. So I'm going to give this a little bit of time to get to temperature. And we are now going to add the ground beef as well as the spices. So that is the garam masala and the curry powder. And now just break the beef apart and mix it in with the onion garlics that are already cooking. Make sure that you end up with a fine, in Dutch it's called geruld vlees, which means it's all tiny little pieces. So that's what we're going to do here. The smell in the kitchen right now is great. The curry, the garam masala, the onion, the garlic. The beef is fully cooked, so now it is time to add the vegetables with the exception of the bean sprouts. They go in all the way at the end. We are going to add the cabbage, the leeks, and the carrot. And it will look like a lot, but once you stir it through there and it gets some heat to it, it will lose some volume. We're going to add our Fresnos to this. The vegetables are cooked down enough. You don't want them to lose some of their crunch. So it is time to add 4 tablespoons of ketchup manis. 2, 3, and 4. That's it. The ketchup manis adds just such a familiar smell to this dish to me. So, all right. It is time to add the noodles. We're going to break it apart and mix it through. The noodles rested a little longer than they normally do, so just gently separate them. I'm using a pair of tongs for this, and then stir it through with the meat and the vegetables. It's already loosening up, as you can see. Now it's starting to look like Bami Goreng, just like my mom makes it. And even though we didn't have all the conveniences of Bami meshes or the specific noodles and the pre-mixed spices, it still smells exactly the same. So I know this is going to be delicious. Now it's time to kind of fold it so that you make sure that the meat and the noodles get properly mixed. Because you don't want to have one bite with noodles and no meat and then the next bite be all meat. So just gently fold it through each other. It's a workout. That way you don't have to feel guilty about eating this. Here we are. Now it's time to mix the bean sprouts through. You don't want to cook these too long because you kind of like to have that crunch of the bean sprouts, and they cook so quickly. So you just want to mix it through, make sure that it gets warm and evenly distributed. We're done. It's time to eat. So I'm gonna put some in a bowl and eat it. I have put a small bowl together for myself, and let's go give it a taste. Eet Smakelijk. It's fantastic. The noodles are perfectly cooked. The vegetables still have a crunch to it. There is some heat from the Fresnos and the sambal. There's sweetness from the ketchup manis. It's overall just a great dish. And I know that when we make pilaf next week in the video, and you'll add that to this, you will absolutely love that combination as well. But Like I said earlier in the video, we can talk about some other additions that you can make to this. So one very common is literally just a single sunny side up egg on top of this. The richness of the yolk when you cut into it and it seeps through the pasta and the noodles is so luscious when you're eating it. The other common addition actually is some chicken satay, and I'll have a video about that later. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button. And if you make this dish, let me know how it came out in the comments below. All right, thank you, and I'll see you next time.